Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. It seems like we just did a live 24 hours ago. I feel like I have not left this place. So welcome back. As I was writing script for my next video, I realized it's probably much easier if I just share with you the information I have gathered. So hopefully I will quickly go over the information I've gathered. And then we may have some time to do a quick Q&A, but I don't want to keep everyone for very long because this is a weekday night. All right, so today we'll talk about Xi Jinping's dream team, right? He got what he wanted. He wanted a third term. He wanted the Politburo. Everyone in the Politburo is his loyalists. And we'll compare his quote unquote dream team to the past leadership teams, and then talk about some notable personnel changes that will give us the insight into Xi Jinping's priorities for the next 5 years. And at the very last, I'll talk about Xi Jinping's successor. I read in many media that they all seem to think that Xi Jinping does not have a successor. I think differently. I think it's very obvious. Well, thank you. Thank you from Middle Kingdom Watcher. I'll get back to the questions later, but thank you for your donation. And so I think it's very clear who he has in mind as his successor. So I can't wait to share that with you. So stay till the very last. All right, so let me share my screen. What I want to say is the way that this Politburo standing committee came out was very different from the past 3 Politburos, right? So in the past 15 years prior to this point, we've seen the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th Politburos. And take a look at the pictures. So this one was in 2007 when Hu Jintao was still the CCP leader. It was a 9-person member. And this was their coming out group photo. You see, Li Keqiang is the second person on the far left, and Xi Jinping was the second person on the far right. Notice the background. It's a picture. It's a painting that the Chinese called Jiangshan Tu, right? It's mountains and rivers. And the word Jiangshan in Chinese means sovereignty, regime, or it could mean political power. So that seems to be the tradition the CCP has had when they introduced their top governing body. So from 2007, that was the picture that they use as a backdrop. Same with the 18th Party Congress in 2012. That's the first time that Xi Jinping came out as the CCP leader. It was a 7-person member, and you see it's the same painting behind them. And again, 5 years ago, when they took the group photo, that was 2017. It's the same picture. So now, but if you notice this time when they came out, the 7 people, they use a different background. It's all red, and they remove the painting, which is the mountains and river, the mountain river painting. And instead they used this CCP logo and just made it, text. It's definitely the change in my view is definitely echoes Xi Jinping's view that the party, the re-emphasis on the party, CCP's leadership, but it caught Chinese people's attention because the painting that you saw in the previous photos, the Jiangshan, it has a symbolism. Because mountains and rivers, I said it in Chinese, it means sovereignty or regime. So a lot of people are asking the question, so does this mean that this will be the end of the sovereignty, the end of the regime? Because they removed the regime, right? They removed the mountains and rivers. Jiangshan in Chinese, 没有江山了, right? In Chinese we say What happened to the Jiangshan? What happened to the regime? What happened to the sovereignty? So Chinese are talking. So what happened? So that's a not very auspicious signs in the mind of some Chinese people. So I just want to quickly show you the one cultural aspect of their first coming out group photo, how different that is from the previous 3 sessions. Okay, I call that Xi Jinping's dream team because he got what he wanted. Not only he got what he wanted, he also got something that Mao Zedong dreamed of but never could get his hands on. What I mean is that I made a video on October the 18th. It's called How Xi Jinping Became Mao II. I made the video before the end of the 20th Party Congress. So at the time, I was saying how he became Mao II. Now I realize he has exceeded Mao II because he has accomplished something that even Mao was not able to do. What I meant is, if you look at how Mao obtained power, he established his dictatorship at the 7th Party Congress in 1947, and the height of his power was after the Cultural Revolution or during the Cultural Revolution in 1969 at the 9th Party Congress. But at both Congress, the top governing body of the CCP was comprised of 5 people. But within the 5 people, Mao did not have everyone that belonged to his faction. So for the 7th Party Congress in 1945, he only had 2 people, right? So his faction was 3 out of the 5, and the other 2 people didn't always agree with him and had different opinions. And in 1969, he only had 1 other person who was a diehard loyalist, and the other 3 people had different opinions. So as strong as Mao Zedong was, or as powerful as Mao Zedong was, he could never have a Politburo standing committee that's made up of exclusively his people or people who belong to his faction. So throughout the history of the CCP, all the CCP leaders had to negotiate, balance powers. And, the top governing bodies are always, a balanced mixture of different factions. So Xi Jinping, for the first time in the history of the CCP, build a team. Here we go. That's all of his people. These people basically just follow his direction and don't think otherwise. And if you look at it, some people asked me, I think it was at yesterday's live, some people said, how could Wang Huning, the guy in the lower left corner, who many believe belongs to the Jiang Zemin faction, how come Xi Jinping kept him? Well, this guy is his political makeup artist, and he is the mastermind behind Xi Jinping's leftist policy. And this is the man who believes that the communist system or the communist ideology is the one that will beat the United States. This is what this man truly believes in. So I think it was last year, Washington Post had an op-ed written by Hugh Hewitt, and he calls Wang Huning the most dangerous man in the world. So, and he's the only political makeup artist who has served 3 CCP leaders, from Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, and to Xi Jinping. So Xi Jinping at this point felt that he is not threatening, and so far he's done what he wanted him to do. And if he is continuing on the path of turning to the left, he probably needs one still on his team. So he didn't get rid of him. And the other 6, I should say 5 people, really are just his loyalists. And some people say Zhao Leji, the guy next to him on the right at the top, may also is kind of a complex person. Some people call him, Jiang faction, and some people call him Xi Jinping faction. The reason people say he may belong to the Jiang faction was that he or is that he holds one of the most powerful job in the Politburo, which is he heads up the Discipline Inspection Committee, right? His organization is responsible for striking down corrupt officials. But in the past 5 years, he hasn't really done that much for Xi Jinping, unlike Wang Qishan, his predecessor. So people said that she isn't actually very happy with him, for his lack of actions in the past 5 years. So for that reason, many people think that he really doesn't belong to the Xi faction. But anyways, this is Xi Jinping's team. Now, if you really think about it, how was Mao remain the supreme leader when he had to deal with different factions in the Politburo? What I want to say is Mao was very good at playing power, turning people against each other. He played the other factions. Whereas in the case of Xi Jinping, I think, if you look at, if you've been following the news in the past couple of days, you probably have already heard about the feud between him and Hu Jintao, and how he removed Hu Jintao from the podium. So if you really look, and he removed 3 of Hu Jintao's allies, the reformists, right? Wang Yang, Li Keqiang, and Hu Chunhua. So if you really look at what Xi Jinping has accomplished, I think he unfortunately has become a victim of Jiang Zemin faction's tactic or a plot against him. Basically, the Jiang faction's plot has been to turn Xi Jinping against Hu Jintao. That has, you've seen that they have, if you have followed Chinese politics or CCP politics, we've constantly heard rumors about, Wang Yang will be the successor to succeed Xi Jinping, right? We heard that during the Beidaihe meeting last summer. And this summer we heard, Li Keqiang is going to be the leader. And we heard, Xi Jinping is under house arrest and Li Keqiang is now the CCP leader. These rumors, the purpose of these rumors is to turn Xi Jinping against Hu Jintao, or turn them against each other. That has been the tactic by the Jiang faction to weaken Xi Jinping and the reformists. And unfortunately, he somehow had fallen into that trap. And look at his list. He kept the Jiang faction person or people, and he got rid of all the reformists, all the Hu Jintao people. And Hu Jintao was the man who helped him, rise to power. So what I can say, the difference is, even though Xi Jinping may be the CCP leader, but somehow I think he has fallen into the trap by the Jiang Zemin faction. So that's just one observation that I have. And if you really look at the makeup of this Politburo Standing Committee, it's interesting. We have the party secretary of 3 major economic provinces. We have the party secretary of Shanghai, right, Li Qiang. We have the party secretary of Beijing, Cai Qi, and we also have the party secretary of Guangdong province, who's Li Xi. So you have the head of 3 major economic contributor. So that's interesting, but that doesn't mean that they're going to do well in the next 5 years in terms of building Chinese economy. And what surprised people the most is the inclusion of Cai Qi, the man in the bottom row on the left, second left. He is currently the party secretary of Beijing, and this man does not have a good reputation because he requested the removal of all the billboards on the high-rise buildings in Beijing, and that caused quite a controversy back in 2017. He also, I think, during the visit by former President Donald Trump to Beijing, Beijing had a fire, a notorious fire, and Xi Jinping afterwards felt he had lost face. So he ordered Cai Qi to do something about it. And as the head of the Beijing city, Cai evicted tens of thousands of poor people or lower people living, at the bottom of social strata, and order them to move out of the capital city in the middle of a harsh winter overnight. And that really just was quite controversial at the time. But look, he's now rewarded for his diehard devotion to Xi Jinping, right? So none of the 7 people on this list have had any experience in managing economic affairs at a national level, right? And Li Qiang, the second person in ranking, who many believe will be the next premier, only had experience in Shanghai, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu province. He had not dealt with national economy at all. So it's people wonder how he's going to do that job, and he has not held the position of a vice premier before, which has been a tradition in the CCP's. In all the CCP previous premiers, they had all held the position of vice premier before becoming the premier. And also, Li Qiang has become synonymous with zero COVID for his notorious lockdown in Shanghai. So again, he's being rewarded for being loyal to Xi Jinping by carrying out his zero COVID policy in Shanghai. So people say during the Shanghai lockdown, the group that was hurt the most in Shanghai is the middle class. The middle class people in Shanghai was terribly hurt from the lockdown. So this is what Chinese concluded. They said, well, here we have the next leadership, and they said Chinese economy will suffer because Xi Jinping is very good at wiping out the upper class, the wealthy people. And then Li Qiang is very good at wiping out the middle class. And then Cai Qi, the party head of Beijing, who knows how to wipe out the lower class. So they said, Chinese people are just going to be poor because you have 3 leaders that will that have a track record of knowing how to get rid of, how to eliminate those people. So that's what people have said. So now, these are the 3 reformists that are gone, right? Okay, so now let's talk about some of the characteristics. So the Hu Jintao faction, the reformists, are completely wiped out. And not only they're wiped out from the Politburo Standing Committee, the removing of officials who are friendly to the West, who are more open-minded in their economic policies, or who have more experience in managing a market economy, are also removed from Politburo or from the CCP's Central Committee. So here you have Liu He, who is currently the vice premier in charge of, he's the, I think, the highest ranking economic advisor to Xi Jinping. He also spearheaded the trade negotiation with the US government. This man was educated. He was a visiting scholar at Seton Hall University School of Business. He also received a master's of public administration from Harvard's Kennedy School in 1995. So he has been educated in the West. And then next to him is Guo Shuqing, who is currently the chairman of China's Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission. He studied at Oxford for 1 year as a visiting scholar. So Liu He is no longer in the Politburo, and Guo Shuqing is no longer in the Central Committee, in the CCP's Central Committee. So those are just examples to show. And then those people who replace them don't have as much extensive education or expert knowledge in economic matters. So these people are out. And the other trend is princelings are also out. So here you have Hu Haifeng on the far left, who is the son of Hu Jintao. I talked about him in yesterday's live, how we talked about the document that the Hu Jintao seemed to have an issue with, right? There's a white list of candidates' name that I talked about yesterday, and it turned out his son Hu Haifeng was not on, or is not on, the Central Committee list, and also Hu Haifeng was a delegate, so he sat in the audience watching his father being removed from the podium. So that must be quite an experience for him. And I've heard news. There are rumors saying that his bio has been removed from the government of the official website of his from the municipal government in Zhejiang. And there are also people say that's not true. It was never listed because only the party leaders' bios are not listed. Only the executive members, like the governors, the people who run the functional departments of the government, their bios are listed, but the party leadership bios are not listed. So I have not got time to verify that. And there are also media saying that they saw him appear in news report on the 24th, holding meeting in his city to talk about the 20th Party Congress. So I don't know if the rumor is true. And the man in the center is the son of former CCP leader Li Peng. He's a premier. He's also the adopted son of Zhou Enlai, one of the founding members of CCP. So, and this man is the Minister of Transportation. He also surprisingly fell out of the Central Committee list. And then the woman is the granddaughter of one of CCP elder. His grandfather is quote unquote the king of Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, Ulanfu. This woman also didn't make it to the Central Committee list. And if you think about it, the Central Committee list has close to 400 people, right? 205 committee members, and then 170 something alternate members. So it's almost like 400 people. And you think these presidents didn't make that list. So that shocks a lot of people. And so they think that Xi Jinping is obviously cleaning out princelings from his leadership. But interestingly, I looked at the Politburo, the 24 Politburo members, right? They're made up of two groups of people. One group is people who had worked for Xi Jinping when he was a provincial leader in Zhejiang, Shanghai, or Fujian. And so basically, they were all his formal subordinates or people who had a connection with his family. So that's one group. And I'm not going to talk about that. And there's another group. And these people didn't have any professional affiliations with Xi Jinping. So they didn't work for him. And they're not princelings. So they are called technocrats. So they rose to power because of their expert knowledge or their expertise. And they're all kind of, they all have technical background. But take a look at their technical background. Right. So, for example, Yuan Jiajun is a what do you call that? Aviation dynamic expert, and he heads up China's space program, and he made it to the Politburo. And then Ma Xingrui, right? Ma Xingrui is also he heads up China's space program. Oh, Ma Xingrui, sorry, the guy in the middle is a flight dynamics, a scholar in flight dynamics, and is the leader of China's space program. And then Yuan Jiajun, the guy on the left, is the chief commander of the Shenzhou spacecraft project. He's the director of China's Academy of Space Program. And then Li Ganjie is a nuclear scientist. But these people, aside from their technical expertise or their scientific background, they also hold political jobs. So, for example, the guy on the far right, the nuclear scientist or somebody who has a nuclear technology background, he is the party secretary of Shandong. And then Yuan Jiajun, the guy on the far left, is the governor of Zhejiang province. So these are the CCP's technocrats, but who have strong technical background. But take a look at their specialties. Don't they tell you something, right? Space program, nuclear technology, and here's more. So the two guys on the far left, Liu Guozhong has studied artillery shell manufacturing. He has been the party secretary of Shanxi, but he specializes in weaponry development. And Zhang Guoqing, the guy next to him, has worked in the weapon manufacturing industry for 30 years. He served as the chief of China's National Weapons Industry Corporation for a long time. And then Ying Li, the guy, he's a public health official. That's his specialty. And then the guy on the far right is an environmental scientist who got his PhD from a college in the United Kingdom. So these 7 people, I went through the list and find that they had no previous personal connection with Xi Jinping, but they got promoted, I think, all because of their technical background. And as far as why Xi Jinping promote people with weaponry development, with weaponry manufacturing, with public health, with space program expertise and nuclear technology, I think it tells you something, right? That tells us where his priority and focus will be in the next 5 years. Because promoting these people to the Politburo is a big deal, because the Politburo is the top 24 governing body of the CCP. Unlike the Central Committee, which has 400 people, this is the top 24 people. So the fact that he has all these space program, people who heads the China space program or weaponry development or weapon manufacturing, tell us where his focus is, where he's going, right? Okay. All right. So this is also very interesting. Wang Xiaohong, the man on the left, is known to be one of the people that Xi Jinping trusted the most. He heads up he's the Minister of Public Security. And then the man on the right, Chen Wenqin, heads up the state security. So this man, the man on the right, is basically the head of CCP's intelligence organization. But interestingly, in terms of their personal connection to Xi Jinping, definitely Wang Xiaohong, the man who is the Minister of Public Security, is closer to Xi Jinping, right? But in terms of their promotion, Wang Xiaohong, the Minister of Public Security, didn't make it to the Politburo, which surprised many people. But the Minister of State Security, the spy head, the head of the intelligence, made it to the Politburo. So some China experts are saying, well, Xi Jinping really is sending out a message. He thinks the intelligence organization is more important to him, or is going to play a bigger role in the next 5 years than public security guy, because public security is basically maintaining internal domestic stability, right? Putting out unrest. So it's taking care of security domestically, whereas state security is dealing with spies, intelligence, infiltration, and all of that. It's really external. So that, again, shows you where his priority is for the next 5 years. Again, there's no women. Sun Cunlan is the only woman, female leader in the top governing body, but no more. She will be, at the time, people thought that she will be replaced by Chen Yiqing, who's the head of Guizhou province, but apparently that did not happen. So all 24 people. All 24 Politburo members are men. So no more women. Okay, so now let's talk about another interesting feature, or yeah, I should say maybe feature, that surprised people is neither of the two people who have been whose name has been tossed around as successor or potential successor to succeed Xi Jinping is out. So Hu Chenhua is out. We already know that, right? So he is not only not in the Politburo Standing Committee, he's not even in the Politburo. And then Chen Ming'er, who is Xi Jinping's loyalist, it's somebody people thought that he had picked as his own successor, is also out. But he's out of the Politburo Standing Committee, but he's still part of the Politburo. And so people say, why is that? Right? So based on that, a lot of media assumed, well, Xi Jinping is not going to pick a successor for himself because maybe he wants to hold on to power indefinitely. He wants to do the job, for the rest of his life. I kind of disagree. I think not having a successor or not having somebody who is going to replace you is going to be a liability for Xi Jinping. His political opponent will use that to discredit him, because people are going to ask him, well, what contingency plan you have? What if in the event of something happens, the party, they'll use the party as the excuse. Well, the party has to go on. The regime has to go on. If something happens to you, what are we going to do? We can't run without a leader. So you've got to have a successor. So if he goes on without having a successor, it's not going to go well. And people may choose a successor for him. So to prevent that from happening, he would rather choose his own successor than wait until the last minute that somebody just, give him one. So I think Xi Jinping would not go on without having a successor in his mind. And I think he has chosen one. Take a look at everyone on this list. It's very obvious. I'll just give you one hint. Take a look at the age of every man on this list. You'll notice something. Okay, so let's think this way. 5 years from now, every man on this list will be over the age of 70, except one, right? And that man, I think, will be Xi Jinping's successor, or at least the man he has in mind to be his successor, and it is Ding Xuexiang. I think one of his two favorite people. I think Xi Jinping's two favorite people is Li Qiang, his premier, the guy he promoted to the second in command, and then Ding Xuexiang. And I think in order, and notice how the way he has arranged this Politburo is so that 5 years from now, there's no one who can compete with Ding Xuexiang, because every one of them will be over 70 years old. So naturally, by default, Ding Xuexiang will be the only one who can be the next leader. And I think that's also the reason why he got rid of Hu Chenhua. Because look, Hu Chenhua is 1 year younger than Ding Xuexiang, right? So if he put Hu Chenhua in the Politburo Standing Committee 5 years from now, politics could change. The political dynamic could change, even though Xi Jinping would do everything he can to protect Ding Xuexiang and not have Hu Chenhua have any chance. But age-wise, these two individuals are they're going to compete, right? And it's hard to say what would happen 5 years from now. And I think that's the reason Xi Jinping got rid of Hu Chenhua from the Politburo Standing Committee, because only by doing that, then Ding Xuexiang has absolute, a carte blanche, basically, to be the next leader, because he has Politburo Standing Committee experience, and then 5 years from now, he will be the most eligible one, right? Or he will be the only one who's eligible. And then, but if you read, I read New York Times and other media to say, oh, he is not going to be Xi Jinping's successor. And the reason they gave is he does not have any solid experience in running a province. So all the CCP leaders, before they become leader, they had like they play the role of either a major municipal, like Shanghai or Beijing, like the party head of the major municipality, or they play the party head of a major province. So they have provincial experience. They have experience of running like an entire region. And Ding Xuexiang has always played, he is Xi Jinping's chief of staff. So he has always played support role. He was the head of human resources in Shanghai municipal government. So he always played this office role. He has never had any real functional title to actually be responsible, to be in charge of something. So that's New York Times argument for him not to be qualified for the next CCP leader. But I think they're thinking, most people are thinking from the Westerners' perspective. They don't think from the Xi Jinping's perspective. Do you think Xi Jinping wants somebody as strong as he is to be his successor? Definitely not, right? So what we think is Ding Xuexiang's weakness may be a plus in the eyes of Xi Jinping. He wants somebody who he trusts. He wants somebody who's weaker than him, right? Somebody who, if you look at all Deng Xiaoping, okay, Mao selected somebody who he liked, and then once he realized these people are highly talented and very capable, he got rid of them. Not one, he got rid of two, maybe three. He got rid of three. Same with Deng Xiaoping, right? He got rid of Hu Yaobang, he got rid of Zhao Ziyang. These people are all very capable and talented, but the paramount leader can't tolerate them. They all end up with someone much weaker than them, and that's their ideal choice of a successor. So Mao eventually chose Hua Guofeng, who is weak. And then Deng Xiaoping regretted choosing Jiang Zemin. So his ideal candidate was Hu Jintao, who's also weak. And they don't choose someone who's a princeling. They choose someone who's a technocrat, meaning who don't have as strong of a background as they do. So Xi Jinping will not choose a princeling as his successor. He will not choose somebody who is very politically established and strong. He wants somebody who has weaknesses, who will rely on Xi Jinping to continue to rule. So that way Xi Jinping can be the de facto leader, right? The Taishang Huang in Chinese. So in this kind of a arrangement or mindset, Ding Xuexiang, his chief of staff, is the perfect candidate for Xi Jinping from his perspective. So that's what I think. That's why, in order to make sure Ding Xuexiang get the job 5 years from now, he got rid of Hu Chunhua. That's the real reason why Hu Chunhua didn't make it to the final list. So now let's talk about who is this Ding Xuexiang guy, right? So who is he? Well, from public records, what we know is he went to college at the age of 16. So he could be a very smart guy. And he studied heavy machinery. And he graduated from college at the age of 20 and started as a researcher where did he work? At the Shanghai Institute of Materials Research. That's where he started his career. And then 12 years later, he became the head of the research institute in 1994. So by then he was only 32 years old. Yeah. And then during that time, he managed to obtain a master's degree from Fudan, from the School of Management at Fudan University. And he entered politics at age of 37. And the first job was, he was the deputy director of Shanghai Science and Technology Commission, and that was in 1999. He held various positions. One of them was the head of human resources. And when Xi Jinping was briefly the party secretary of Shanghai, he was his aide, political aide. But Xi was terribly impressed by by Ding, because he's low key and he has a very pragmatic approach to problem solving. So I think him and Li Qiang are his two favorites. But Li Qiang is too old to be his successor. So this man will be, in my opinion, in my assessment, will be Xi's choice for to succeed him. And then, in terms of how would she handle the criticism that this guy has no experience in managing a functional department, right? He's always played the supporting role. So that's why people think that Ding will be given the position of a vice premier. A lot of people were surprised to hear that Ding will be given the position of the vice premier. They assumed that he would be given a more important position, such as like the Discipline and Inspection Commission. But no, that was not the case. You know why? Because vice premier is a very important step to become the head of CCP. If you have the experience of if you have the experience of a vice premier, then that will overcome his weakness of not having any functional experience or not holding any functional titles. So that's why let's wait and see. I think his appointment will be announced soon. If he is going to be given the position of vice premier, that tells me he will be Xi Jinping's chosen successor. Because the track record for vice premier is you either become the premier or you become the CCP leader, the party head, and there's no way he's gonna be the premier because Li Qiang, his other favorite, is playing the role of a premier. So that tells me if he is given the job of vice premier, he will be Xi Jinping's successor. Okay. So wow, I talked for 45 minutes. So I think that's the end of my presentation for tonight. Did I bore everyone with all these CCP politics? No? Let me come back. All right. So, okay, let me just go back to see, do I have any super chats question? Oh, thank you everyone for the donation. Let's see. Okay, so from Middle Kingdom Watcher, why did Wang Huning save Li Zhanshu from helping Hu during party congress? If the Jiang faction is so dangerous to Xi, then why did she take extraordinary, I can't say the word, steps to exclude Hu Jintao's people? That's a good question. I think I kind of talked about that in the beginning. I think, unfortunately, the Jiang faction is very sneaky, right? I think they have played Xi Jinping against Hu Jintao. And I could tell that from all the rumors that have been spreading. And unfortunately, she has fallen into that trap. So I think she compromised. I think the Hu Jintao people are more forthcoming. They're more honest. They say what's on their mind, and they're reformist. And then the Jiang faction, the people there are much sneakier. They're more. They play. Yeah, they're just sneaky, and unfortunately, Xi Jinping fell into that trap. Yeah. All right, let's see. Let me see. Do I have another question? Xi Jinping is a loser. It looks like so, right? Many people say from the switch of the picture I show you in the beginning, the picture when they remove the painting, the traditional painting that shows mountains and rivers, people say it's so obvious that this is going to be the last Politburo standing committee that we're going to see from CCP, because it's just such a ominous sign. You know, they removed the regime. They removed the regime themselves. So that's what the Chinese are saying. Let me see if I have any other super chat question. From Middle Kingdom Watcher. Okay. Is it possible that someone had foreknowledge that whose list would be different and changed whose list to the correct one in order to create a scene? Wang Huning seemed like he knew what was going on. It's possible, but today I saw more people make comments on that. I think that there definitely more people think that the likelihood of having a different list for Hu Jintao is smaller. Uh, and according, let me show you something. Maybe let me talk about this. I have the slides prepared. I may as well address this question. It's a rumor. Oh, it's insiders information that I cannot verify, but I like to share that with you. So this is going back to the feud between Xi Jinping and Hu Jintao, right? This is the infamous folder and then the list on the table that got Hu Jintao so obsessed and upset. So there is this guy, Wang Juntao. He is a dissident and a pro-democracy activist living in the West. He also has a PhD in political science from Columbia University. He's one of the respected China experts on the subject. And today he had there's an article on Chinese Epoch Times. I show you a picture of that. Those of you who read Chinese can read it, or if you have somebody who read Chinese, translate Chinese for you, you can check it out. But in that article, he said there's a vice minister level official who he had contact with. And according to them, the information they got is, this is what the article says. Beforehand, Xi Jinping had agreement with Hu Jintao. The agreement is that Li Keqiang and Wang Yang will stay in the Politburo Standing Committee. Hu Chunhua will join them. In exchange, Xi Jinping will write the two confirms. Remember, I talked about he made an amendment to the party constitution by adding his leadership into the constitution. So he will get that added to the party constitution. But when they got close to the meeting, Xi Jinping suddenly changed his mind. He does not want Hu Chunhua to be part of the Politburo Standing Committee. But he still wants his leadership to be written into the party constitution. And Hu Jintao got upset and disagreed. So Hu threatened to say, if the young Hu, meaning the Hu Chunhua, is not allowed to enter the Politburo Standing Committee, then Li Keqiang or Wang Yang will both quit. But in the end, we see that Hu Jintao, couldn't win this battle with Xi Jinping, and that's what the insiders' information that came out today. And this is the comment that Wang Juntao said. He said that CCP leaders at the level of vice minister level are high enough to know the real information, but sometimes the information they disclose to the outside world, they can mix in their own personal views or information in it. So he thinks it's to some extent it's reliable, it's credible, but it may not be 100% truthful. So that's what Wang's comment on the information on the information he disclosed in this interview piece. So I just want to share that with you because I have no way to verify that, but maybe that will help. That will be helpful to answer your question. Let me come back. Okay, so let me see. Do I have any other questions? I think I answered all the super questions. Oh, here's one from Chandler. Thank you, hard work and expertise. I find it strange that a country which is nominally communist can have such high income inequality. Do you think this contradiction can last in the long term? I don't think it can last in the long term because there's just so many I think the middle class and then the lower class are hurting badly, and then they are really. The question is how much more can they take it, right? And then the upper class, the people who have the money, I heard right after the party's congress, all the immigration law firms, get their phone calls from the wealthy people in China. They're all ready to leave. So I don't think this can last very long. By the way it's going. Let me see. I think I answered all the super chat questions. Oh, here's from Cubs Win 2012. Thank you for the donation. Please elaborate on how the public ejection of Hu is backfiring on Xi. Well, it's censored in China. So people in China, the general public doesn't know unless they use VPN to access, outside media. But I think the CCP leaders know. I mean, think about it. The 2,300 delegates saw it firsthand, right? They sat in the audience. They saw it firsthand. So they know, and I think they're going to be talking about it. So I think it's just going to intensify the internal political struggle. I think Xi Jinping, in order to hold on to power, he may have to bring down more people from the Hu Jintao's faction, those reformists, people who are generally more open to market economy or who are more friendly towards the West. I think those people probably will face a massive cleansing. By cleansing, I mean political cleansing. They'll probably not be favored in terms of promotion or getting the job. Yeah, I think those people are not going to be favored. But the more Xi Jinping does that, the more intensify the internal, basically the more enemies he creates for himself. And that's just not good. From William Warren, what are the vices of the standing committee members? Money? The CCP, why? Yeah. So why CCP leaders is, from our perspective, it's like, so what? Why do you want to be in there? Like, who cares? If you have to risk your life, your reputation just for that job, and it's not even a good job. I mean, you just have to lie every day, right? Why bother? Well, but in the CCP system, it will guarantee a good life. Once you reach certain level, like your safety, once you retire, your personal safety, your family safety, they took very good care of all the retired leaders, especially top leaders and their families and their children. If you look at their benefits, the amount of money, the medical expenses, I mean, they have everything. They devote national resources to take care of these people and their children and their grandchildren. So that's why they want to do everything, even for their children. They want to move ahead or get ahead. It's very sad. So either that, if they want to stay in China, that's their track record to move up, to live a good life, or they quit, they leave, right? But it's not so easy to leave now if you're high-ranking government officials. Okay, from Digital for More Son. Is it legal in China to make gossip news about the CCP leadership like the UK about the royal family? It's not legal. You could get yourself into trouble. There was a young man or a group of young men who did they disclose the information about the daughter of Xi Jinping or something like that? And then they got arrested, right? So no, you cannot. I think not inside China. I mean, but then people all talk about it verbally. You just don't leave any record of it, online. So that's why Chinese people they create a lot of euphemisms to talk about these things. So all the Chinese creativities are used. I think it's very sad because Chinese cannot speak honestly. Their creativity is all devoted into saying something that without meaning it. So that's why sometimes it's very hard to understand Chinese because you don't know what they're talking about. That's just because they can never speak honestly what's on their mind. It's very sad. From VGERNYC, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it my imagination or is it Xi preparing for war in the next 5 years? I don't think it's your imagination. I think the rest of the world has seen it very clearly. It's coming. I mean, I talked about it in my Saturday's live, where he added 3 amendments to the party constitution, and one of them is kind of legalize the preparation for war, and the other is the planned economy going forward for China. I think these are all steps he's taking to prepare for war by writing these into the constitution, the party constitution, not the state constitution. But the party constitution is bigger than the state constitution in China. So by having those clauses written into that, he's making people impossible to be against him. So it's impossible to stop him to start a war, right? So yeah. And then if you looked at all the people he promoted into Politburo and take a look at their technical background, they're all like space, heads up the weaponry development, weaponry manufacturing, nuclear scientist. I mean, doesn't that tell you something? Chandler, with the lower classes under pressure, do you think a second cultural revolution is possible? Well, the Cultural Revolution wasn't started by the people. The Cultural Revolution was a campaign started by Mao Zedong. It was a revolution the leader started to turn people against each other. So I think what you're asking is, are people going to start a revolution on their own to overthrow the regime? It's possible. I think when people are so upset, I think anything is possible. Yeah. But it not in the same way Cultural Revolution was started, because Cultural Revolution was started by the regime, not by the people. So it's very destructive. Did not accomplish anything. Thank you, Kanwa, for your donation. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, I think I got to the bottom of all the super chats and super thanks. Well, thank you very much. I'll take let me see. Do I have any other questions? Zero COVID policy to continue. I made a video about why zero COVID will stay for a long time. I'm going to release it maybe on Thursday. Yes, I think it will stay. I think as long as Xi Jinping is in power, it's the zero COVID policy will stay for a long time. And I'll explain why. Okay. Are you marked as illegal person with this type of show? According to who? According to CCP? Well, there's so many people they call illegal. It doesn't matter, right? I'm not a Chinese citizen at this point, so it doesn't matter. As long as I'm legal in this country, I think that's what matters. All right. Why? Okay, last question from DL. Why do you do what the West want, which is to nitpick everything slightly negative about China? You think I'm nitpicking? Do you think I'm really nitpicking problems that's slightly negative? If that's what you think, then I understand where your question is, where you have. But I think people disagree with your observation of China. I think you need to have an open mind and really think in the shoes, put yourself in the shoes of the Chinese people who can't even speak up. If you really think China has so many, if you really think the problems are minor, maybe you should move to China and live there for yourself to see if it's slightly negative. Okay. All right. So I think we had a good session. I explained a lot of things. I think that's it. It's 59 minutes, and I will see you soon, I guess. All right. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Stay well, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.